Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining back in. I'm the Broken Wolf, the game analyst, and you are here to hear about Sniper Ghost Warrior 3's Reimagining. This is our third vid, but we're talking about our second pillar to Sniper Ghost Warrior 3's new reimagined game plan, and that is the combat loop. Now, the combat loop, the first thing we're going to be explaining is the human enemies and the variations of those human enemies. And first and foremost, you're going to get kind of like your routes, your rodents of unusual size motherfuckers, but at the same time, there's a mix-up to this type particular enemy that will make them a lot more enjoyable to fight and a lot more of a challenge. First and foremost, the first enemy you really run into in the game are either thugs or separatists, and in this case I'll be explaining them just as separatists, but they're pretty much the same thing. So first and foremost, this enemy is going to be, it's pretty much a basic soldier. They're untrained, so they have various behaviors that maybe trained soldiers will not have. These are going to be guys who will be carrying occasionally shotguns, but more often than not, you'll see them with pistols and rifles. In the game, you see them, pretty much every motherfucker has an AK. But when it comes to the reimagined version, I would like that to be mixed up a little bit more for variation and also for changes in gameplay, because you have to deal with a guy, if you're in open combat, you have to deal with a guy that has a shotgun differently than the guy that has an assault rifle. All these separatists are going to have generally about 1/3 the amount of ammo that the player has. So we're going to have a system in place where the enemies will actually have to get ammo. They don't have unlimited ammo, which they do in the actual game, and that's something that is just, it's so fucking irritating, because they can just let loose on you with no consequences and just keep firing over and over and over and reloading. And that's one thing that I can't stand in first-person shooters, actually, is that when the enemy has an unlimited amount of ammunition, especially when you're on higher difficulties, it's just unfair nonsense. So upon exhausting that ammunition, they'll actually have to go to places to re-up, and you can go to those areas where they go and sabotage them by blowing them up or shooting them up or doing damage to them. And what this will do is it will lower the amount of ammunition that all enemies in the area carry. When enemies run out of ammunition, they'll pull out their blade and they'll attempt to attack the player melee style. And of course, if they're out of ammo and all they can do is melee style, they're open to your shots and your retaliation that way. So separatists are pretty much cowardly, and same goes for the thugs. If you kill about 90% of their allies, they'll just quit the battle. They'll flee from battle. When you cut their, this is important, this is very important, when you cut their allies down to about 50% of what they started out with, some of them have a slight chance, about a 25% chance, of going into this insane mode known as outrage mode. And outrage mode is something that a lot of the enemies, a lot of the human enemies in the reimagined version of the game will actually have access to this thing called outrage mode. What it does is it causes them not to flinch from small arms fire, and what that is 5.56 rounds from the assault rifle or pistol ammo, or any kind of pistol, either of the two types of pistol ammo. Now, there's 45 ACP and then there's 9mm. The only type of pistol ammo that will actually make them flinch is Magnum pistol ammo. And if you were to shoot them with 7.26, which is the stronger form of assault rifle ammo, or a shotgun or a sniper rifle, of course they'll flinch or they'll stagger. But in outrage mode, they are more aggressive when it comes to firing at you, so they take less time, they stop less times. When you normally face an enemy, they'll actually kind of pop up, shoot at you, and get back down. In outrage mode, you'll hear them screaming. That's the big thing about outrage mode. They'll scream, they're doing these big battle cries, they're moving around a lot, they move a little bit faster, about 15% faster, and they'll shoot at you more often. And they also flank you a lot faster, too. This, with separatists, by the way, this has a very short chance of happening, just to let you, just to remember that. With the other enemies in the game, it will happen more often. And in fact, some of them have it as a basic skill or a basic ability that they use. But When it comes to separatists, they'll shoot into bushes more often. They'll detonate explosive barrels. They'll throw grenades at you. They'll do all kinds of crazy shit. And if they're left alone in outrage mode for too long, the normal separatists or thugs will actually turn on each other and start shooting at each other, out of fear. Basically, outrage mode is supposed to be like a just crazy fucking mode for this basic enemy that in any other game you just mow down this asshole and it'd be nothing. You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't even be a challenge. But in this, I want them to have the ability to always be threatening. That's one of the most important things about combat here with the reimagined version of the game. Other than those guys, the basic mobs, you're going to run into armored and specialist enemies. The specialists are going to include snipers and shotgunners and heavies, and snipers, shotgunners, and heavies can come in what's known as an armored form. It's not necessarily armored, but in the case of shotgunners, and heavies, it's actually literally armored. They get more armor on. When it comes to snipers, there's a specific type of sniper called stealth sniper that I'll explain. So, getting into snipers scout the area like they do in the game. They will have a wide range of movement to where they can aim. But the thing about snipers is that in the game they kind of like stare in one direction, but in the reimagined version of the game they'll actually look in different directions. So they'll turn their cone of influence, and their sight cone is very narrow and very long, like it is in the game. That is perfect the way they did that. And that's exactly how that should be. Snipers are best fought with other sniper rifles, whereas the separatists and thugs are better fought with open combat or a shotgun or an assault rifle or a pistol. Snipers, of course, are better to take out with either using stealth or using your own sniper rifle. They will also have various types of sniper rifles. So if we're talking about, they can have 50 cals, they can have sniper rifles that shoot EMP, they can have sniper rifles that shoot explosive rounds. Of course, not in the beginning of the game, but towards the after you get out of the tutorial areas and you're kind of in the mid part of the game, and of course towards the end of the game, you're going to be running into a lot more of these enemies that have this powered up tech. So snipers do not go into outrage mode, and oftentimes they're going to come with 2 spotters, not just 1. Oftentimes in the base game, you're not even going to see 1 spotter with a sniper, which is just crazy shit. They don't even have like the area around them mined up. Like sometimes you'll run into that, but the vast majority of the time you won't. In the reimagined version of the game, they'll actually have 2 spotters with them. One to watch their back, and the other one is designed to look in the direction that the sniper is not looking. You see what I'm saying? The way we're setting this up is that this is going to be challenging for the right reasons. It's not going to be challenging because enemies just turn around and see you. Like I've had that happen in the base game so many times, it's ridiculous. It's going to be challenging because there are logical ways these enemies are set up that you are supposed to use your techniques and your abilities to get around them. So imagine having a 3-person team. One's a sniper, he's looking in one direction. Spotter is looking in another direction. And then we got a second spotter, or you could say he's a guardian that is watching the area around the sniping position. You know what I'm saying? That's the way we're setting this up. So snipers will also be able to alert other enemies to the player's position if spotted. Instead of in the actual game where it's like when you get spotted, everybody just basically knows where you are, which is really weird. You even see on the mini map that they know where you are. Like you'll get spotted in one area, you'll kill the guy, run to another area, and somehow you'll see on the mini map that for some odd reason they decide to go around walls that you're around or go straight through bushes that you're through. It's ridiculous. It's weird as shit how they know where you are, and that's something when you're doing a stealth game, guys, you cannot have that. You cannot have a stealth game where the enemy automatically knows where the player is. That's never a good idea. So, after digressing, sorry about that, getting back to snipers, when I say they come with EMP rounds, later on they'll actually be able to shoot an EMP round just near you, or an explosive round just near you. Of course, if it's an explosive round, it'll blow your ass up. But if it's an EMP round, it'll actually disable your HUD and your compass and things like that, and make it harder for you to spot enemies. Stuff like that. The late game snipers are called stealth snipers, and what they are is they are snipers that do not have laser sights. You know, in the base game, a bunch of snipers will have laser sights so you can see where their cone of influence is going. I mean, well, their cone of sight is. Well, in late game, you're not going to have access to that. They're also going to be in inconspicuous sniping positions, so you're not going to see them on top of mountains. You're not going to see them on top of buildings. They're going to be in crevices. They're going to be perhaps even on the ground, but have a bit of a elevated position. We'll try to put them in places where it's not usual for that sniper to be there, but they still have a good cone of sight, good line of sight to be able to take you out if you're not careful. And they have silent sniper rifles, so when they shoot you, you're not going to be able to tell necessarily where you'll get the damage indicator as to where you got damaged, but you won't be able to tell necessarily where they are because you're not going to be able to see a flash. You're not going to be able to hear much of a sound. It's designed to be a little bit more confusing and force you to use those techniques that you've been building up around the entire game. So, moving on from snipers, the second specialist category is the heavily armored. We see them throughout the game. They're the guys that handle the LMGs, and oftentimes they have a face mask that will, if you shoot from the front, it'll block bullets from the front. Of course, you have a 50 cal, it'll go right through them, but that's a 50 cal. So, in this, the reimagining for this enemy, I want them to have their entire head covered. You'll notice with heavy armored enemies, all you got to do is blow the back of their fucking skull out, and I think that's a little bit too easy. What it should be is that their entire head is covered. So if you don't have a 50 cal, you're not going to be able to shoot through their armor, and you're not going to be able to shoot their head off. And the balance with a 50 cal is that it doesn't have there is no 50 cal silencer, and it shouldn't be because it's such a powerful weapon. It can go through any armor in the game, so obviously it shouldn't have a silencer, which is perfect. The problem is with heavies is that oftentimes you'll see that they're only wearing a face mask where you can just shoot their face, the back of their head, and it'll kill them instantly. There are some heavies that come with a helmet, but I don't know if that helmet is able to block regular rounds. I gotta try that in the game. I haven't tried that yet. But what happened with the reimagined heavy is that they are covered from head to fucking toe, and only their eyes, there's a little slit where their eyes are that you have to fire into to kill them. Otherwise, you'll have to blow off the armor they have, and obviously that's easier said than done. Heavies do not run out of ammo easily because they carry twice the total amount that you could carry for the weapons they have. They will never run from battle, and this is the cool thing about heavies. See, snipers never go into outrage mode, but heavies will always go into outrage mode as soon as they have lost half their life. So if you've knocked off a bunch of their armor and they're almost about to die, they'll immediately go into outrage mode, and they'll rush your position. They'll keep firing their gun. They'll attempt to melee you if they get within range. They just rush you down as fast and as hard as they can, and they keep firing. So it's this really, and they actually start running too. In the game, heavies don't really run; they only walk, and they can walk and shoot at you. Well, in the reimagined version, they'll be walking and shooting, but once they go into outrage mode, but remember, this is every time a heavy loses half of their health, no matter what. It doesn't matter if you shot them with a sniper rifle. Every time they lose half their health and you have not killed them, if you shoot them in their head, obviously they're fucking dead. But if you have not killed them, they will go into outrage and begin spraying the area. Right? So when heavies run out of ammo, they actually come with a backup shotgun. So heavies change to a shotgun from their LMG if they run out of ammo with the LMG. The best way to take a heavy down in the reimagined version is definitely going to be with either a Magnum, a 50 cal, a sniping shot, or shooting them directly between the eyes, or a shotgun. You can't melee a heavy in the reimagined version of the game normally because they will deflect your attack just like they do in the actual game. They don't deflect it, you're just not able to do it. You can't melee kill them in the actual game. In the reimagined version, if you attempt to do that, they will deflect your attack and kind of knock you over, like enemies can do if you don't melee them fast enough. But if you shoot them first and they're in a stagger animation and then you melee them, then you'll be able to melee. The last specialist category is the shotgunners. Now, the shotgunners are rush down enemies. Their whole point is to get up close to you and get in there quickly and kill you. And with a shotgun, it's not too hard to do that. They have very little armor on them, which means that they can be killed by pistols or assault rifles very quickly. But to balance these vulnerabilities, they're always in outrage mode. So if they notice you, they'll shrug off 5.56 and pistol rounds, small pistol rounds except for the Magnum. And they'll always dodge away from grenades and bouncing betties, so you can't blow them up very easily. You can do it if you set it up right. Say if you set one explosive as a bouncing betty and then you got a C4 and they dodge away from the bouncing betty and you blow up the C4, obviously they're going to fucking die. They'll often wear protective front-facing headwear, by the way, so you can't shoot them in the head as quickly. So if they're coming after you, like they will be doing most of the time, and you're either shooting them with an assault rifle or you're shooting them with a pistol, it'll allow them to get off probably about 2 shots before you take them down. And that can be very dangerous if you have multiple shotgunners coming after you. The cool thing about shotgunners is they carry half the ammo you can carry for a shotgun, half the total ammo you can carry. If they run out with their particular shotgun, they'll actually drop their weapons in totality and use a melee knife. So they'll come after you and attempt to do melee on you and kill you that way instead of shooting at you like the other enemies may attempt to do. Getting out of the regular enemy soldiers, going on to the really, really special top tier enemy soldiers. That's obviously the 23 Society guys, which in this game are just, all they really amount to is guys that have a lot of armor on. I haven't really noticed them do things differently. They have a lot of armor and they have a really cool assault rifle that for some reason you can't use. I don't know if that's the Gale Force or not, but I can't use it. So it's pretty weird that you can kill them. They're the only enemy you can kill in the game. And their gun is still strapped to their body. You can't actually pick it up. It's weird as fuck. Anyway, the 23 Society soldiers will come in all variations. That means heavies, snipers, shotgunners, the regular assault riflemen. It doesn't matter. They come in all variations. And during combat, they will never run. They will never flee from battle. And they are always in outrage mode, because they're always going to be wearing very thick armor that can only be removed by blowing it off or shooting it. They'll always move about 50% faster than all other enemies in the game, and you cannot melee kill them unless you have staggered them with gunfire. So if you shoot them a bunch of times and then they go into a stagger animation, then you can actually melee these enemies. But if you attempt to go up and melee them in front of their face, they'll deflect your melee and knock you over on your ass.
You try.
These enemies can actually shoot the player from about 3 times the distance that normal enemies can, and they can shoot you even if you're on the move in a vehicle. So it's very important to be careful around 23 Society soldiers. You mostly want to use a combination of explosives, traps, trickery, stealth, silence, all the things, all the tools you have to defeat these enemies without doing open combat, because that will most likely end up in death for you. So that is all when it comes to the enemies that have guns. After that, we're getting into enemies that are just the basic animals in the area. And the main enemies that can hurt the player directly are going to be wolves, dogs, and bears, respectively. So wolves, first and foremost, will only attack in the woods. They'll avoid soldiers, they'll avoid roads, so they're not going to be around those areas. And if the player gets into a road, so to speak, they'll kind of circle, but they won't. We want to make sure they don't come after you, because they know that that area is oftentimes patrolled by soldiers, and the soldiers oftentimes shoot at them. They're very courageous in numbers. If you've got 5 or more wolves, they'll attack from multiple sides without fear. But if you lower that number below 5, and you say even if you shoot at the wolf, they'll run. What they do is they don't flee completely from battle just because you shot at them. That's only if they get most of their allies, about 90% of their allies are dead. Then that one wolf left will run. But just by shooting at them, once you lower their numbers below 5, just by shooting at them, you'll have them break off lines of attack. So say a wolf is darting right for you, and you've only got 4 wolves in the area. If you shoot in the direction that wolf is in without even hitting it, it will oftentimes turn, break off, and run. And what it'll do is it'll kind of circle around to the other side. So imagine you got a bunch of these wolves coming at you from the front, and you shoot, you do this line of spraying to get them away from you. They'll break off, and whatever their direct air, whatever the direct opposite angle that they could come at was when they were in the direction where you shot at them, they will go around to that opposite angle and attempt to attack from that area. They'll always explode. This always happens with dogs. Period. Any kind of canine enemy, they always run from explosions. So even with the trained dogs that I'll talk about a little bit later, the wild dogs and the wolves, if you set off any kind of explosion, an explosive barrel, a grenade, whatever, they will actually run from that and they'll flee from the battle completely. The last thing to know about wolves, the most important thing, is that they have this ability to get into bushes that the player can get into, and any area where the player is considered unseen or completely hidden from the enemies, a wolf can kind of get into that foliage, and if you get close to it, they can jump at you and knock you over. And if there are about like 4 wolves in the area, they can come and just fucking jump on you and tear you to fucking pieces. If there's more than 3 wolves doing that to you at one time, and that's going to tear up your health really fast. But if there's more than 3 wolves doing that to you at one time, they will instantly kill you. So it's very important when you're fighting wolves to stay away from foliage, because they have the ability to do that very quickly. Trained dogs and wild dogs are the second wild animal category that can attack you. Both these variations of dogs have the ability to smell you from the average sight distance where an enemy can spot you, which means that if they smell you from that distance, they will actually come over and investigate before anything. They won't immediately say, hey, I know some jackass players over there, go fuck him up. But they'll actually sniff you out, and then they'll come over to you, and you'll get a little indicator when they're doing that on the lower difficulties. Wild dogs will oftentimes attack in pairs, and they commonly come in about 4s. They will not run from battle except for explosions. So they either keep coming to you until they kill you, or you kill them, unless you use explosive devices. They're also skittish like the wolves are. So if you shoot at them, they'll dodge it. They'll kind of back away or move around or do the encircle animation that the wolves do. Training dogs, however, on the other hand, when they spot you, they don't immediately attack you. What they'll do is they'll bark to alert the humans in the area. And they will only attack you when there are no other humans around, or when they are paired with a human AI enemy who gives them a specific command to attack. They're also scared by gunfire, and like I said before, they also are completely scared out of the battle by explosives. The last and most important of the animals that you can face in the Reimagined Sniper Ghost Warrior are bears. Bears are like shotgunners with super armor on. These things rush you down. They can kill you instantly. If you are facing away from a bear, they can kill you instantly. If you're too close to them, they can kill you instantly. If you shoot a bear in the face with anything other than a shotgun or a sniper rifle, it will not affect them. So you can consider them completely in outrage mode all the time. They can resist explosives. They can not be melee attacked. They can actually run from a battle. If their health is really low, they will attempt to run. But usually they're not going to shy away from coming at you and attacking you. Now the cool thing that I thought about with bears is that you could, say you kill like 5 bears, right? And you collect their biological material. You can take this biological material and make a lore out of it from, like, I don't fucking know, man. Bear piss, bear glands, bear blood, whatever the fuck it is, it doesn't matter. You can make this lore, and you can take this lore to enemy encampments and throw a lore into the enemy encampment. If it hits the ground near enemies, or if it hits an enemy, it'll spawn a bear and the fucking bear comes in and is attacking your enemies. That's one thing about bears. They are not skittish like the wolf, so they're not going to shy away from open facilities. So you can actually summon the bears with these bear lures, and of course, if you can summon fucking bears, it's pretty overpowered. So of course, you want to make something like that hard to do. That's why I said you should have to kill like 5 of them, and then combine it with some kind of rare materials or often sought or hard to find materials over here, and then you can go and make that bear lore, one bear lore, and you can use that to summon a fucking bear when you really need the help. That'd be pretty badass. Last but not least, we got minor animals. Now, minor animals are like snakes and rats and bats and maybe some birds that can spread diseases that lower your stats. So if they bite you or attack you and claw you up, they can spread those diseases to you. And we talked about those diseases or various negative conditions that you could get before in the second video when we talked about the survival pillar. The overall themes and ideas behind this combat for the reimagined game is that the player has to use the 3 pillars in various unique ways in every major encounter. So it should take several techniques to win in a situation, so that when you take your techniques and your equipment and you combine them together, you make this badass combination that was the reason for why you achieved victory. For example, if you take separatists and shotgunners, you would use stealth and open combat to defeat them. Stealth to take down the shotgunners, open combat to take down the separatists. If you have heavy plus snipers plus trained dogs, you want to use sniping and stealth because you don't want to get too close to those trained dogs because they'll alert everybody in the area, remember. If you're going against 23 Society soldiers and heavies, because remember, 23 Society can come in various variations, so they have 23 Society shotgunners, soldiers, and heavies, and snipers. If you're going up against the soldiers and the heavies from 23 Society, plus a bear, plus some snipers, you want to use stealth, luring the bear, luring your enemies, EMP weapons to damage the 23 Society equipment, including like their helmets or their weapons or things like that that allow them to get the edge up on you with their technology. And then you also want to use sniping and explosives to take out that group of enemies. And then, of course, if you're going up against, say, wolves and a bear, you'll use open combat and explosives. Explosives to chase the wolves off, and then you can use open combat against the bear to take it down. Combat should always be quick, harrowing, and threatening in every single scenario. And enemy facilities should be laid out in such a way to where if you go through it in complete open combat, there are plenty areas where you can utilize the environment around you to help you get through that open combat scenario. Of course, with the exception against 23 Society, because that's probably not going to end well for you. I mean, they are, even in the narrative, they are souped up soldiers. And then also, if you want to do complete stealth that environment, it should be set up that way. So when they're making the environments, when you go to the level designer, you'll talk to them and say, look, or her, and say, we need this environment to be conducive to both these playstyles in totality, and then the player will be able to mix and match as they go through that area. Alright, man, that's all. That's all. I've wasted enough of you guys' time. I hope you love these ideas like I love these ideas. If you do, please share, like, and subscribe. I'm trying to grow my channel, so I want to see more of you guys sharing my content. I want to see you coming by and commenting, and let me know what you would like to see out of a reimagined Sniper Ghost Warrior 3. Thanks for joining in. This was the Broken Wolf Game Analyst, and I am out.